Okay, so I'm going to start with a very simple question. What is The Last of Us Part II about? Easy, I know. So, of course, warning for spoilers ahead. The Last of Us Part II continues Joel and Ellie's story of survivors doing what they can after the end of the world. We follow Ellie as she tracks down a buff woman named Abby for murdering her father figure Joel. And then we follow Abby on her own sort of adventure.
Which way to the dock? Up, over the hill.
Then at the end of the game, Ellie is given the chance to kill Abby, and she doesn't take it. So, what is The Last of Us Part II really about? I've seen a lot of really great discussion about how this game is constructed based on perspective, based on how Ellie and Abby's perspectives are different, and how they're alike. But I haven't seen as much conversation around how one specific kind of perspective functions within both Ellie and Abby's stories, and that's the perspective of time.
It's starting to sound like something.
Ugh, I suck.
Nah. Just need to build up your calluses, that's all.
Yeah.
All right, come on.
Time is as integral to The Last of Us Part II as, locked doors.
Shit.
This game is a cautionary tale in hindsight and how we look back before moving forward. For better or for worse. I mean, let's be real here, this is a Last of Us game. It's gonna be for worse. Okay, well, with that out of the way, let's talk about the Texan-shaped, Troy Baker-voiced elephant in the room. And, of course, that's Joel.
Oops.
The Last of Us as a game, then as a franchise, was built largely on the relationship between two people, Joel and Ellie. Joel was largely the point-of-view character for the first game, so by the time you're riding across fields on horseback, you probably feel some sort of connection to him. And the game absolutely depends on that, because Joel is used sparingly, purposefully, and, I would argue, with care in the second game, which can be difficult to understand because this game is brutal towards him. This game made me love Joel more than I ever did in the first game, and it did that by killing him. Which is weird, because when you look at his life in full, at his flaws, and at some of the things he did right,
Geronimo!
This time I was able to finally understand him.
Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. Our future days of you and me.
I mean, just look at the museum scenes or the porch. This game makes you love a dead man after the fact, and that's the entire point. How do we deal with the afterwards, after a life or a love or a loss? And the truth is, afterwards hurts more. We wallow in the pain of his death, in the gravestone, and in his house, in the song that he sang to Ellie. We visit him in trips to the museum and adventures through rundown inns, but he's ultimately inaccessible. So we try to reach him through a quest to find the person who killed him. Fast forward through the whole game, through happy moments and sad ones. Ellie's grief and the obsession that manifested from it cost her everything. Her girlfriend, her son, Jesse, and suddenly Ellie is holding Abby underneath the water. But as Ellie is killing Abby, she sees a new image of Joel. Not Joel beaten and bloodied, but him strumming away at the guitar. So Ellie lets Abby go. Because while Abby is the recipient of Ellie's rage, she's not the source of it. Ellie's story was never about Abby, it was always about him. Ellie finally realizes that the path she's on, it won't save him, and it won't bring him back. Ellie's flashbacks give us a literal representation of time as we travel backwards and spend more time with Joel. But these flashbacks, minus the one at the beginning of the game, all happen after his death. As the player, those flashbacks mean far more than they did in the moment for Joel or for Ellie. The Last of Us Part II gives our time with Joel a limit, and gives us glimpses of his life in fragments. We are given the gift of experiencing these moments with him, but the curse of knowing that we can do nothing to prevent Ellie from losing him. During the final moments of the game, we get to see that last conversation that Ellie and Joel had.
If somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment, I would do it all over again.
I don't think I can ever forgive you for that. But I would like to try.
While so much of Ellie's relationship with Joel had been painful, with this memory we see the promise of something else. She wants to forgive him. And that happiness hurts more, because in hindsight we know that it won't last. And suddenly we get this context that we didn't even know we were missing, and all the pieces fit. Because this isn't a game about hate or revenge or the cycle of violence, even though it definitely includes all of those things. This is a game about how we carry the weight of the people we love after we've lost them.
If I ever wanna lose you, I'd surely lose myself.
Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself.
Joel dies when Ellie has so much hope for their future. He dies and that hope has nowhere to go, so it goes into rage and violence and vengeance. This game is about loss as a perpetual act of looking back at what we don't have anymore. When all is said and done, how can we show someone we love them when they aren't around to love?
Reckon it's easy. Forget about her. You sitting all comfy way out here?
Hey,
I'll make her pay.
Tommy.
That's what you said when we got back to Jackson.
Tommy.
Games have a weird relationship with time. With a movie or with a show or a book, you have to keep moving forward. You can pause, but the story freezes too. In a game, you control how fast the story moves, or even if it moves at all. You could live and breathe in a moment forever if you wanted to. We can do what Ellie can't. We can stay forever on horseback riding to Jackson or spend an eternity on patrol with Dina. We can see Joel alive again. But it will never feel the same. Because as much as we go back, we can't separate the past from what happens. Happy moments turn bittersweet. We can escape to the past with Joel riding through the woods to Jackson, but we are acutely aware that it is just that, an escape. Sure, we have the power to restart from the main menu, but we can't go back to the happy days any more than Ellie can. Not really. If the mixed reception to the ending proves one thing, it's that The Last of Us Part II shows us that looking back is painful, but moving on is far harder.
Go. Just take him.
Ellie's journey of finally escaping not only a cycle of violence, but a cycle of grief, isn't one shared by all players. Because as much as this game is about Ellie, its greatest strength and greatest weakness is how it allows the players to tackle loss on their own terms. For the majority of my time with this game, I hated it. It was the most well-made game I've ever hated to play. There were sections where I put my controller down and considered just not coming back. The game seemed obsessed with beating me down, exploring humanity and loss and grief in only their darkest forms. But I don't think The Last of Us Part II is as pessimistic about humanity as people say it is. This game is a grief simulator, but as much as it shows how grief can warp us to do horrible things,
You a bird? Well, you're a bird now, aren't you?
it ends by showing that even after intense pain and suffering, we still have the ability to work towards something better, that we can find it within ourselves to move beyond the past, that we can learn to look forwards, not back. Not just that we can forgive, but that we too deserve forgiveness. So as the credits roll, there are no more murderous flashbacks, no more vengeance. For the first time in the game, Ellie isn't looking backwards. She's moving forward. Because the world isn't a perfect place, and sometimes it isn't even a good one. But even then, even after losing everything, don't we deserve the chance to be more than the pain that we've endured?
I do okay.
Are you fucking kidding me?
You're welcome, kiddo. What do you say we keep looking around, huh?